Saito and I headed back to the base, and I noticed fireflies grouping in circles as he updated me. The bald doctor staying in the Terada Inn was, in fact, someone different than my father who just happened to match his description.
My apologies. I brought you all the way to Fushimi and there was nothing to show for it. This must have seemed like a waste of time.
Oh, please, don't worry. Even though we learned nothing about my father, I was able to get some fresh air. That's nice. Still, I couldn't shake the worry from my father. Saito looked to me reassuringly, and his face lit brightly as he remembered something.
Oh, by the way, that man you were talking to earlier.
Oh, you mean Saitani?
He was an odd man. Usually I can read people, but his outward demeanor was overly friendly, while his body language seemed guarded.
Huh, I guess I didn't notice. To me, Saitani didn't seem guarded at all, judging by how open he was with stories. Was something troubling you about him, Saito? He nodded in response, looking away from my face. Ooh?
You can tell a swordsman by their expression. I assume him to be some form of Ronin, and if he's from the area, he is likely to be a warrior of the Satsuma domain in the west.
A Ronin, He seemed too jovial to be a lordless samurai, especially the ones causing trouble in Kyoto. From what it seemed like in our conversation, he was the furthest thing from a warrior. Ah.
I only tell you this because you shouldn't let your guard down. The state of Kyoto has been unsafe, and I want you to be extra careful.
Understood. I wonder who this Saitani man really was. Well, it's definitely not his name, anyway. My first adventure into Fushimi taught me many things, and I could only await what came next. As we fade out. Yeah, his name is something Sakamoto, I believe. I don't think I've unlocked him yet in my warrior record. Chapter 2. With a picture of our old boo to load us into the new chapter. No news of my father came forth the other day, and somber restlessness took hold of me. Hello? There we go. Originally, it seemed Hijikata granted me approval to accompany the captains on their rounds through Kyoto to search for my dad. Then he called me in. Excuse me. I saw Okita and Heisuke had been summoned along with me, and I felt a partial sense of relief. It did a little to calm my chattering nerves, and I didn't want to be in a bad spot with Hijikata. You called me? Hijikata seemed to be in a foul mood, so I decided it was best to act with tact in his presence.
I was thinking about the search for Koto, but maybe it's best to put a halt to it for now.
What? But why? We just started looking for him. Stopping now would surely cause any of our leads to run dry. His words stunned me. How could he back out on this? Hijikata remained deeply composed.
We have reports of activity from the Choshu, and they do not bode well for us. It would be highly dangerous for you to be out and about.
I'd heard how the warriors of the Choshu domain associate with the Imperial Nationalist Party. For some reason, they find foreigners repulsive, using brute force to prevent any foreign presence. All of their faith is aligned with the Emperor. The Shinsengumi, on the other hand, serve the Shogun, meaning they are directly opposed. If the Choshu is active, it could mean that my own goal is of little concern to the Shinsengumi. I might become something of a burden to them. So, are you asking me to refrain from joining the rounds until things with the Choshu domain settle? Hijikata nodded and turned towards the two men.
That being said, as of right now, she is not to accompany any rounds with any captains.
Oh, I get it now. That's why you pulled us in here, right?
Heisuke seemed 2 steps behind Hijikata's words, until this very moment where it seemed to click.
You know, she never caused any trouble during any round she joined us in. I kind of feel like it shouldn't be a problem if she tagged along.
Yeah, even if something were to happen, as long as she doesn't get involved, it should be fine. I mean, it's not like she can run away from us if things get sticky, right? I won't run. I knew he wasn't being serious, but I couldn't stand to keep my mouth shut. I made up my mind the minute the men of the Shinsengumi agreed to help me find my father. I made a vow to never run from the Shinsengumi for as long as they helped me find my father. My desire to find my father showed no signs of slowing, even since I first arrived in Kyoto. I will keep my vow. So please, please allow me to continue looking for my father. I bowed to Okita, keeping my eyes locked with his. His smirk, however, shrunk slowly as he gazed towards me, caught in between words to say. If you stay with us, you're putting yourself at risk. If you want that risk, feel free to join us. I mean, we have witness reports that fit the profile and description of Kyoto.
You may have a point, but are witness reports enough justification to put her in harm's way? What if you're wrong? What if she's exposed? Do none of you understand? You're placing an unnecessary burden on yourselves.
I promise I won't cause any trouble. Please! If I lose the opportunity to search for my father, then the chances of finding him will sink. I lied prostrate before him, and Hijikata simply sighed heavily.
You'd better follow the orders of every captain you join. No ifs, ands, or buts, am I clear?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. I didn't know how else to show my gratitude, so I bowed deeply again.
I'm leaving it to your discretion over whether or not you're going to join them. That's on you.
All right. I had to make sure this was the best decision. There was something in his demeanor that made me unsure of my desire to leave the compound. Still, if I was with Okita or Heisuke, I'm sure I'd be safe and well protected. On the other hand, my presence could be an undue burden to them. What was I to do? I don't need to go with Heisuke or Soji, so I'll remain in the compound. After all that pleading. After contemplating, I decided to stay in. I couldn't convince myself that I wouldn't be a burden to them during dangerous situations. Still, it was disheartening to think about. Another dull day spent inside. Throughout the past 6 months, I was allowed to finally search for my father on the rounds, and I felt like a part of the house by contributing. Even though sometimes I was occupied with cleaning or cooking, it seemed like I was serving my part to the Shinsengumi in a meaningful way. I spent most of my time with the captains, but there were many opportunities to chat with the warriors and come to know them as real people. Maybe they were starting to think of me as a warrior in training rather than Hijikata's page. These worrying thoughts made me so anxious I was turning numb. The idea that I had become so dependent on the Shinsengumi at this moment. What should I do today? I was resigned to the consequences of my decision, something that felt like I was wasting away the tender moments of my life in these headquarters. I was, in short, with nothing to do. All right. I decided to enter the inner courtyard, where maybe I could feel a pleasant breeze tingle my face in the shade. The quaintness may calm me down. Damn it. Alas, no winds blew through the courtyard today. No reprieve from the harsh sun bearing down upon this dry emptiness. I had a feeling it was going to be a bad day. Shade was the best I could hope for, it seemed. I sat in whatever shade I could find. Something occurred to me as the sun roasted Kyoto. Oh, right. My father's been here, hasn't he? They'd mentioned it, but they hadn't told me why. Was he tending to the injured, or perhaps educating the Shinsengumi on how to avoid illness? Maybe he'd intended to stay here long term. My father never mentioned to have been with the Shinsengumi. He'd visited only a few times, or so I'd been told. If he'd really been their doctor, then he would have visited far more often, which left me with the question, why? It was extremely clear to me that the Shinsengumi had plenty of secrets, but I grew suspicious that these secrets deeply implicated my father as well. No, that can't be right, can it? I shook my head again, trying my best to dispel the dark thoughts taking shape. What can't be right? I spun around to find that Sanan had walked behind me, utterly undetected and unannounced. Oh, Sanan! Is it all right for you to be walking around? Please, I'm no bedridden invalid. There is nothing wrong with me. There was a hint of coldness to his words.
Although my left hand is something of an invalid.
I couldn't bear to look at the sad, twisted smile he gave me. His arm hadn't healed, and it seemed certain now that it never would. The rest of the captain seemed sure that he would never be able to use his arm as he'd done before.
And what are you doing? Are you allowed out of your room? You haven't been given the run of our headquarters, I'm sure.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. They usually let me walk around as I please, so long as I didn't go into anyone's room, but I knew that technically I was confined to my room. Any freedom given to me was simply a courtesy. In other words, Sanan was right. If he decided to chastise me for being in the courtyard, I had no reasonable response. There were some things I wanted to think about. I hoped the courtyard would be breezy. The moment the words were out of my mouth, I realized they sounded far more like childish excuses than a valid explanation.
When you sneak about without permission, it makes it seem as if you have something to hide.
I'm sorry. Still, I was beginning to grow accustomed to the subtle cruelty that seemed to accompany each word from Sanon's mouth. All right, I'm going back to my room then. I turned and began to walk away. Sanon's unpleasantness had started after he was wounded during his trip to Osaka. He spent most of his time locked in his room now, and he was quick to lash out on others in response. I knew the loss of his arm hurt him, more than I could understand, but I wished he could go back to being the warm, kind man he was originally. I turned around to see him still standing there. It's really hot out today. You should try and stay out of the sun. Please, take care of yourself. I gave him a nervous little laugh, and he responded with a chuckle of his own. His smile didn't look forced.
Thank you. Take care of yourself as well.
Okay. The Sanan I'd first met was still there. My spirits lifted, I ran back to my room. It was later that evening that the compound exploded with activity. I was walking down the hall when I heard footsteps and turned to see Nagakura coming toward me. Nagakura? What's that for? He glanced down almost absently at his hands, holding a candle and an exceptionally long needle.
One of the Choshu guys we picked up isn't talking. Hijikata's gonna talk to him personally, but he said he didn't have the right, tools and sent me to get these.
I don't understand.
Look, kid, ignorance is bliss, alright? Don't think about it too much.
He gave another bark of laughter, turned his back on me, and walked off. Best not to dwell. As the sun began to set, the activity in the compound reached a fever pitch. It was so busy that I couldn't even help with making dinner. The commotion was overwhelming. Heisuke! He shot past my door, then wheeled back around. What happened? All the men are running around. Any word from that Choshu prisoner?
Yeah, the guy finally broke. It looks like they're having a meeting right now. We're getting ready for a raid.
Oh. Heisuke went on to explain that the Shinsengumi would be splitting into 2 groups and searching locations at opposite ends of the city. Kondo would take 10 men to the Ikeda Inn, and Hijikata would take 24 to the Shikoku Inn.
I heard they might be at Shikoku. Gotta say, I'm kinda pissed the chief's sending me to the Ikeda.
They'd send more men with Hijikata because they thought he'd be seeing action. Kondo and his men were to make sure they covered all their bases. You mean there aren't even 40 men ready?
Yeah, kinda sucks because there's so many men who get sick when we need them most.
I'd known that the heat in close quarters made some men sick, but I hadn't known it was so many.
Huh. We sent word to the Aizu and the Judiciary Commissioner, but looks like they don't care.
Sounds like you've got your work cut out for you. Unfortunately, there wasn't much I could offer him apart from sympathy. I had a feeling it was going to be a difficult night. After all the men capable of fighting had left for their respective assignments, Sanan called for me.
I'm sure it was only out of courtesy, but the chief has asked me to protect the compound.
Sanan's passive-aggressive attitude reared its head.
It's mostly empty, of course, but someone may try to attack us for that very reason. I must ask you to stay where I can see you. I may need to give you orders should the worst occur.
Okay. I hesitated a moment, then spoke. Does that mean you'll protect me? I wasn't sure why, but he laughed at that.
Well, I should hope I'll be more use than the men who've been confined to their beds, at least.
Was I supposed to be happy? His smile was so sad, I wasn't sure what to say. It seemed to hurt him most when the other men were out fighting and all he could do was wait. The silence between us stretched out until the door to our room suddenly opened without a sound. Yamazaki lives! Oh, this poor boy, please don't die again.
Colonel Sanan, we've confirmed that the Choshu are meeting at Ikeda.
The Ikeda Inn?
Oh dear. That's less than desirable. The Shinsengumi has never been good with chance.
His tone was light, but his face was serious, and with good reason. They'd been certain Shikoku was the right location, and had sent only half as many men to Ikeda.
Yamazaki, can you do me a favor?
The man whom he'd called Yamazaki nodded curtly. He is the Shinsengumi officer and spy, as well as a member of the Watch. Despite not living in the Yagi residence, he is aware of my situation.
First, go tell Hijikata that the enemy is meeting at Ikeda. He should still be on his way to Shikoku. And I'm sorry to trouble you with it, but I need you to take this child with you as well.
Wait! Yamazaki seemed just as surprised. I paused before thinking about what's next. Why me? Why me? I feel like if I were to go with him, I would only be a burden. Why did he choose me? I can't stand the thought of getting in someone's way and being the reason something bad happens.
You may be a burden, but at the end of it, you could also save someone's life if you're lucky.
Sanan responded while giving me a cold gaze.
There may be Ronin out to intercept you. And besides, there is a chance that Choshu has reinforcements. If your message were to be intercepted, then you will be sure not to reach Hijikata in time.
Sanan finished with a soft smile I hadn't seen him use for weeks.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes. If the worst should happen, I can hold off any Choshu Ronin and give her the message.
What? It sounded as if they were suggesting if things went badly, Yamazaki would sacrifice himself.
Yes. Of course, I doubt it will come to that. We're short of men right now, which means there's more I need you to do. You'll need to notify the Aizu and Judiciary Commissioner as well.
That would have Yamazaki running all across Kyoto. I suppose it really drove home just how thin the Shinsengumi was stretched. And there's no other person that could do this job? What about Shimada? Shimada is another Shinsengumi spy who is trusted enough with knowledge of my situation. Sanan shook his head. The Shinsengumi need every single member they can get, and Shimada was with the Shikoku team. Which means that, apart from Yamazaki, I was the only one that could possibly serve as a messenger at the moment.
You're Yukimura, right? I heard you know a little about how to protect yourself.
Yes, I do.
Unfortunately, I can't guarantee your safety. If you can manage, you're welcome to join me.
If I tried to run away while we were out, I had no doubt that he would kill me without hesitation. This mission is his priority, not my life. Even so, I'll go. I can take care of myself. You don't need to worry about me. Sanan gave me a small smile. I knew he wanted to join the battle more than anyone, but we both knew that wasn't possible. The least I could do was carry out my mission.
Very well. I accept your request, Colonel.
He bowed then as he stepped out of the room and turned to me.
Run with all your might.
I took off after him, my legs working as hard as they could. Into the dark street we ran. I discovered quickly that half a year indoors did little for my physique, and I was out of shape. After only a few blocks, I was gasping for breath. Yamazaki, who was running ahead of me, suddenly stopped and looked sharply behind us.
No matter what happens, follow this street. Don't look back.
Don't tell me someone's behind us.
You don't need to know that.
Seems like Yamazaki's hunch was right. What should I tell him? Do this one again? I'll stay behind. Yamazaki, please, you should go.
Don't be a fool. What could you possibly do by staying behind?
If I distract the enemies, then you could go in the meantime.
If we'll need a lure, then it's going to be me. Run for it!
Yamazaki wasn't looking to take no for an answer, so I nodded in good faith. I looked to what lay ahead for me. As I stepped into the next intersection, I saw a flash of metal from the corner of my eye.
Keep going! I'll catch up in a moment. Just keep running until you see a white uniform.
Right! I kept running. I pretended I didn't hear the sounds of swords ringing against one another behind me and ran. My knees felt weak and my legs shook, but I kept going. They'd have to collapse or tear themselves to pieces before I'd stop. Go, Chizuru! Even so, I felt so slow. I wanted to cry out, to scream at my body to go faster. Faster! A bright light suddenly cut through the darkness, and I placed my hand over my eyes from the glare. My heart stopped. Was it Choshu's soldiers? I froze.
What the hell are you doing?
I very nearly began to cry with relief. Hijikata was not dressed in the usual light blue jacket, but rather a bright white uniform to be seen in dimly lit places. Instead, I simply collapsed as Harada reached out to grab me.
Hey, you alright? If you left the headquarters without permission, Hijikata's gonna kill you.
I grabbed hold of Harada's hand and pulled my body to its feet. I wanted to tell him I had permission to leave and explain it was all right for me to be there, but I was so winded that I could barely speak. Besides, I wasn't sent to Hijikata to make excuses. I took as deep of a breath as my shuttered lungs could manage before speaking. They're meeting at Ikeda. Suddenly, Hijikata's expression changed.
Then they are at Ikeda.
I nodded rapidly.
Are you sure?
Hijikata gestured towards me.
Sanan lost his arm, not his brain. The kid didn't run away. The colonel sent us this message. I'm pretty impressed you found us. I didn't think you knew Kyoto that well, kid.
Yeah, Yamazaki. I'd finally got some of my breath back, and I did my best to tell them what had happened.
What about the Aizu and the Commissioner's men? Are they on their way to Ikeda?
I just shook my head. Hijikata thought for a moment, then spoke.
Saito, Harada, you take our men to Ikeda. I need to go deal with something.
Harada and Saito nodded curtly, then turned to their business.
Kyoto will be dangerous for you alone. Stay with us, or go with Hijikata.
I still lacked the breath to respond properly, so I simply nodded. We both knew they couldn't leave me here, but whom should I accompany? Well, gotta go with my boo. Let's see what happens over here. As fast as we could manage, we ran through the silent streets of Kyoto toward the Ikeda Inn. We were nearly a block away when we heard the first cries of men engaged in battle. None of the Shinsengumi remained outside, but I heard a voice ring out from inside that sounded much like Hondo's.
I shall take the front. Guess I'll take the back, then.
They gave each other a curt nod, then turned to lead their men. I couldn't stand there by myself. I decided to. I don't know why we had to stand here, but I guess we're following Saito. I watched Harada and his men as they ran around towards the back of the inn and turned to Saito. Can I go with you, Saito? He glanced back at me, then quickly turned away.
Stay behind me. If I must be impeded by your presence, then watch out for my sword.
He was even colder than usual, and I was suddenly aware of just how much of a burden I was. I'm sorry. Perhaps it would be best for me to stay put and be quiet, so as to cause no one any further trouble.
I don't care to see you die, but it is not my job to protect you.
He sounded annoyed, but it didn't seem like it was with me. He looked toward the inn, his eyes narrowed.
We're going in. Men, follow me.
Then we charged into the Ikeda Inn. Here we go. Ah! The warm, coppery stench of blood hit me like a fist to the stomach. Whoa. Ah! With a single blow, Saito dispatched a man near the door, his pace barely slowing.
You're here! Excellent! We could use the backup!
Kondo gave a grin as he spoke, then turned to split a Ronin on his sword. With his free hand, he gestured at us to stay back.
I'm fine. You should head upstairs and see the Soji. Hey Saito, looks like you're out of luck, pal. Don't think I left any for you.
I'll let it slide this time. Nagakura came out from the back, and he hung his exposed sword out and laughed in his usual way. Maybe he had one intense battle. There was blood all over his uniform, and it seemed like his left hand was dripping with blood, too. You're hurt!
This come as a surprise. This is a sword fight. You think this is bad? You should see Heisuke.
That's not funny! Nagakura grinned at me as Saito began barking orders to his men.
Don't let any of them escape. We needn't hold back. Kill any who resist.
Saito let our injured evacuate. His voice is steel, and the grimace on his face betrayed his emotions. Oh. That was when I finally understood. It wasn't anger I saw in him, it was concern. He was worried for men of the Shinsengumi. The frustration of not being able to fight with them, of not being at their side. That was why he'd been in such a hurry.
Can you treat the injured? You are the daughter of a doctor, after all.
Yes, I can. The words were out of my mouth before I realized they probably needed something of a disclaimer. Well, I mean, I can do first aid.
That's plenty. Thanks.
Aw, he found a useful role for me. To me, it seemed only natural to care about one's friends, but I'd always seen Saito as distant. He hadn't struck me as the sort to care for anyone, so I'd never even guessed that could have been the source of his frustration. The truth was, he wasn't nearly as cold as I thought. He was a perfect little being. As I watched him dive into battle, his sword a light of hope for his comrades in arms, I wondered how I could have ever thought so. Are we blind? Finally, the sun rose from the black sky. The raid itself had lasted only 2 hours. But for me, at least, it had felt far longer. There had been 20 Imperial nationalists at the Ikeda Inn. The Shinsengumi had killed 7 Ronin and injured 4 more. I learned later that, with the help of the Aizu domain and the Kyoto Judiciary Commissioner, they arrested 23 people. The owner of the Ikeda Inn had also been arrested for trying to help the Choshu rebels escape. The Shinsengumi had won an incredible victory, fighting against superior numbers in enemy territory, but they paid dearly for it. Okita had taken a blow to the chest and lost consciousness. Heisuke had been cut on the forehead and the bleeding refused to stop. Nagakura had injured his left hand. One of the Shinsengumi soldiers lost his life at the inn's rear entrance, and 2 others were severely injured there as well. It didn't seem likely that they would survive. The Kyoto military and judiciary commissioners also fought the Choshu Ronin. With their successful resolution of the Battle of Ikeda Inn, the Shinsengumi had, at last, made a name for themselves. It looked as though the peace in Kyoto had been protected. Never could I have imagined what the ultimate result of their victory would be. July 1864. End of July 1864. Weeks passed since the Battle of the Ikeda Inn. In the meantime, the Shinsengumi grew stricter during their rounds to arrest the numerous outlaw Ronin that escaped from the Ikeda Inn. Rumors surfaced of extremists who were plotting to exact revenge on the Shinsengumi. Additionally, there were also problems occurring with warriors spanning from other domains, making things tense around the headquarters. Things were finally settling down. As a result of my efforts during the battle, they grew more encouraging of my involvement. The Shinsengumi allowed me to sweep the area in front of the headquarters on my own. One day, I was cleaning the courtyard with a broom when I heard gentle footsteps approaching me.
Excuse me, but is this the Shinsengumi headquarters?
Oh, yes! Hi, Iba. Good to see you again. The voice came from behind me, so I was caught off guard when answering.
You're...
Huh? That instant recognition. Hijikata showed up suddenly, as if he telepathically knew I was speaking to someone. Oh, Hijikata, this man is... Before I could finish my sentence, the man ran towards Hijikata.
Oh, I knew it. Toshi. It's me, Hachiro. Long time no see.
You're... Wait, Hachiro. What the hell are you doing here?
When Hijikata realized who it was, his eyes grew wide.
Are you surprised? I visited Kyoto with shogunate orders. Forget about me. Man, so it really was you connected to the Shinsengumi. I couldn't believe it until I made sure for myself. Congratulations. You really did become a samurai.
Aw, come on, don't mock me. I mean, we're treated no better than any Ronin.
Yes, but your dream of becoming a samurai came true.
Hey, I said don't mock me.
Oh, come now. The Shinsengumi are famous in Edo. You are so feared that even crying children go hush. I heard about your victory at the Ikeda Inn. It would seem you lot are flourishing.
Well, we're working on it.
How very unlike himself. Hijikata seemed to be flustered, and his cheeks were rosy. Judging from their conversation, it appeared that this gentleman had come to visit Hijikata. The rhythm of their rapport seemed to suggest that they had been friends for quite some time. Once I verified their conversation had come to a halt, I mustered the courage to speak to Hijikata. Hijikata? May I ask who this is?
Oh yeah, you two haven't met, I take it.
Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet, huh? I'm Hachiro Iba. I'm a Hatamoto of the shogunate Jiki-san, and I'm an Okuzume of the Obanshi.
Oh, I'm Chizuru Yukimura. That's it.
Chizuru. Nice to meet you officially.
Oh, yes. Nice to meet you too. As soon as Iba and I finished our introductions, Hijikata was inclined to get us indoors.
Hey, we don't need to have this conversation out in the sun. Why don't you come inside?
Sure thing. Gotta catch up. I took tea to the two in the hall. Hijikata told me to remain there, so I decided to listen in.
So, you claimed you came to Kyoto with shogunate orders. Sure climbed that social ladder, huh?
An Okuzume? I listened intently but subtly, since I was unfamiliar with the contents of their conversation.
He is entrusted with protecting the shogun and his guests and friends who surround him.
Oh wow, I am honored to meet such a man.
Oh, please. I am nothing special. This was a job I acquired from connections with my father.
But... what would bring a man of his stature here, Hijikata? This meant Iba was someone who worked directly with the shogun. What an honor. It made no sense why he would interact with the Shinsengumi, or why he had business with us.
Oh, I see what you're thinking. You're thinking, why would he know a guy like me, huh?
I did my best to nod without offending him.
You see, not only is he a Hatamoto, but he's the heir of the Shingyoto Ryo Iba Dojo, a top 4 dojo in Edo. The Iba Dojo and my dojo socialize often, so this is how we came to know each other.
Yes, that's right. When I got word that I would be coming to Kyoto, I was excited because I know I would see Toshi.
Whatever. Just keep in mind, Kyoto isn't exactly a vacation destination.
Yes, I'll keep that in mind. However, despite it being so dangerous, it seems even a woman can be with the Shinsengumi.
Iba glanced at me when he asked this question before looking to Hijikata. I cupped my hands over my mouth, and Hijikata's eyes darted toward me sternly. It would seem Iba picked up on the fact I was female, judging by their interaction.
Oh, was that supposed to be a secret?
I didn't want to confirm any answers, so I stared towards the mat underneath without speaking.
Well, her reasons for being here are somewhat complicated, so we have her pose as a man for now. Only a portion of the men in the Shinsengumi know about her, so it would be preferred if you were to keep it under wraps in front of our men. Understood. I'll do whatever you ask of me, Toshi.
Iba drew Hijikata in closer in a jovial manner, and Hijikata blushed at the notion. Hijikata is normally really uptight, so seeing him behave this way was startling. I had a lingering suspicion that Hijikata was actually enjoying himself. All of the commotion must have alerted the captains because they popped up from nowhere.
Oh, what the hell? Hachiro, is that you? I knew I heard your voice somewhere. It really was you, huh? Shinpachi, Harada. Everyone else is here too. Long time no see, boys. Man, you're in Kyoto too? Are you here to train or are you sightseeing?
Don't be stupid. I'll bet you he's here to protect someone important or something, am I right?
Well, maybe it's something like that. If you're in Kyoto, I assume you have a pretty good position.
Iba nodded plainly in response.
I see. You're in Kyoto too, huh? Well, be careful. Don't be stupid and die or something.
Thank you for the warning. I'll keep that in mind. Hey, we should go drinking someday. I mean, we could go now if you want.
Each of the captains surrounded Iba and exchanged words. Most of all, Iba seemed lost in the amount of fun he had while conversing with everyone. I guess he really knew everyone back in Edo. Hijikata watched their interaction with warmth in his eyes and muttered.
See, despite him being a Hatamoto and also the heir of the Iba Dojo, he chose to learn about each and every one of us, and he treats us with respect. It seems no one can escape his amiable nature.
He seemed to be especially fond of Hijikata, though. But I couldn't dare say that.
Well, I guess you can say we're friends. Whenever he visits, be sure to let him in.
Understood. I never see him again. Before we knew it, evening had come, and Iba told us it was time for him to depart.
Well, I guess that means goodbye for now, Chizuru.
Okay. His face seemed reluctant, if not a little forlorn, and he left the compound. I stared at him as he walked into the distance until his small figure was removed from my eyes. Iba was a mysterious person. Even if he was someone very important and upper class, he acted with integrity and kindness, commanding a lot of respect from the captains of the Shinsengumi. I did not think there was a samurai like him in the shogunate.